Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to the 43rd lesson of this RTS tutorial series. In this video, we'll go about updating our vehicle UI and make some other sundry edits. That said, fire up your editor and let's get started. Alright, hey everyone, what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to make our vehicle UI look more akin to our building UI by listing the units that are currently passengers in the vehicle. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up a widget for our vehicle. So let's get our vehicle info. And we're going to place it above the unload passengers and below the passenger count here. So I'm just going to minimize these boxes to make this a little bit easier to see, which means we're going to need another spacer and another vertical box. So let's go to our panel. Let's grab our vertical box and put it on in there. So I'll go into there. There it is. We're going to raise it up. So it's now above the spacer. It's now above the vertical, the release passengers button. We need one more spacer, so let's go to our primitives and grab the spacer and just drop that inside of there, and we'll change the spacer to have a 0.5 value as well, so we know when it's in the right spot. We'll move it up, so now it's aligned with the other spacer. I could just move the other spacer to be fair, and then we'll move it up once more, so it's under the new vertical box. Now, just like we did with the units, we are going to put in our unit's name box, and our unit, we're going to call in that other widget. So it's just name this a unit names box, because this is the box itself, and our unit names will, you know what, actually, this is the box it's going to be in. We have this in the wrong spot. What we want is we want a scroll box. So let's go down to our panels for a second. Let's get a scroll box instead. And let's drop that into here. And this will be our units. Sorry. This will be our units scroll box. Or units name scroll box. Whatever you want to call it. Let's move this up above our passenger. Unload. Above that spacer. Let's drop this into the unit scroll box. There we go. Now it's a child. We'll make it a variable like before. And then we're going to go into our graph. And we're going to create a custom event in here. So custom event. And it will be update passengers list. There we go. We'll do a branch off of this, just like we did with the building, and we're going to get a function, a pure function, that is get is enabled. So it's a widget function. We just want to return, is this enabled? If it is, then we want this to fire. We're going to have another branch, and on this branch we want to get our units box. We want to get the children it has. We want to get the count of it. So we're going to get children count. We want to know, is this not equal to the length of the passengers? So having a bit of an issue, get the exclamation point in there. Plug that in. Next, as I said, we're going to get a list of passengers. We're going to make that as an array here. So we'll have passengers. This will be an array, and it'll be of RTS unit master, just like we did with the building. And we're going to plug that into here, and we're going to get the length. So type in length, and plug that into there. There we go. So we are now getting the length of the number of children and the length of the passengers. If these numbers are not equal, then we want to do a new function, which will be set unit names. Before we go any further, let's go back to the event graph and just plug that empty function into there. Let's go into our empty graph now, and let's fill this out. So just like we did in the other one, we're going to clear the children first. So let's get the, that's the wrong thing. Let's get the unit names box. Let us then clear children. So we don't want any duplicates in there. We don't want it to also fill up with duplicates and things. Oh, I'm done. I don't have any more. And we're going to do a for each loop. And we're going to pass in the array. So for each item in this array, we want to spawn the name. We'll put the return node on here. So we need to create get unit name. That's the same function we had before. Get unit name. Now I could add these to a function library, something calling them from different areas. However, I tend to have issues with that with widgets. I am, again, not a widget expert. I struggle with widgets, to be fair. All right, so in our get unit name, we are going to create a widget. And the widget will be of our occupant field text. So once we've done this, get a reference to self. All right, it's not letting us plug into the vehicle HUD. So let's open up that widget real quick and see what's going on there. So let's open up our vehicle info widget. Oops, sorry, that was the wrong one I meant. Our occupant text field widget. Go to our event graph, and let's open up our references. Now, if you don't have a vehicle HUD reference, go ahead and make one. And you do, make sure you don't set it to building info HUD like I did. There should be vehicle info HUD. Change variable type. Yep. Okay. We just need to repin. You might need to do this a little bit differently. Okay, so we might need to rebuild this just slightly. So we're going to get that HUD. We're going to pass that into there. Make sure that still works. That's the building HUD, unfortunately. So we need to delete this. And we need to do vehicle, close widget. And it's now the vehicle info HUD. Plug that into there. All right. I did not realize we made that mistake earlier. I might have put that in as a dummy variable and forgot to clean it up during the earlier videos. We also will then need to take care of this as well. And we'll do that at the end of this section, or the end of this video. We can now plug the self into there. Let's refresh this node. Also, let's save this just in case. All right. Let's delete this. Create a new one. Create widget. It'll be again of our occupant field text. There we go. It's not the correct type. We can plug it in. Awesome. In here, we need to create a new input, which will be our unit name. Unit name. This will be of type RTS unit master. And we're going to pass that into our unit reference at the bottom there. Plug in a reroute just to bring this down here. And off this reroute, we are going to get our profile. So get unit profile. We are going to split the structure. We are going to do a set unit name. So off of this return value, we have set unit name. Plug that into there. And we're going to pass that into the proper slot there. We'll have the automatic conversion. And then we're going to come around this HUD. And we are going to do add. Sorry, we're going to get the unit names box first. From this, we will do add child to vertical box. All right, plug that into there. And the content will be this widget here. I'm just going to put a couple of reroutes in so it's a bit easier to read. And I've been doing what I normally do, which is pausing before I fill out one of these new functions. We actually I did. Never mind. We put that in there. Awesome. Let's test this out and make sure it's populating. Spawn in a vehicle and a unit. All right, so it's still seeing that. It's not seeing. Oh, yeah, no, we skipped one major step. Yeah, we have to actually call this up now. So to do that, what we need to do is we need to go into our unit master. And just like we did with our building, we have to actually tell it to get the passengers, get the occupants. And we're going to do that in our function for, not get target vehicle. Oh, sorry. We're going to do it not in our unit master. I lied to you. Ignore me. We are going to do that inside of our vehicle master. It'd be helpful to remember where I put these functions sometimes. Sorry about that. So we have this get passengers in here. Remember, this is going to be at the very end. It doesn't need to be, but we're just going to put it there. We are going to do get a reference to our HUD. So our vehicle HUD reference, get, and we're going to do set occupants list. Remember, this is passing as a message. Let's go back to our... Ooh, we need to do one other thing, very important, that I skipped. We need to, in our class defaults, add in our interface, because we don't have the interface call in here. So that is vital for this to work. Our class settings, sorry, not our class defaults. And we are going to add in our set occupants info if. All right, in here is where we're going to populate this passengers list. So we're going to set that there, plug that in, plug that into the return, mark this as a success, compile, save. All right, now back into the ground vehicle master. We are going to pass in our current passengers. So we have passenger details. We have our current passengers. We plug that into there. There we go. We now need then to get a reference to our HUD again. And the name we use this time, remember, if we go to our event graph, is update passenger list instead of update occupant list. So let's go back into here, and we'll do update passengers list. Go ahead and plug that into there. And then finally, plug in the fact that we have units. Okay, compile, save, and hit play to test. Unit vehicle. All right, so we're getting the box, but not the name. Well, let's see what's going on there. So it's getting an error, read none on vehicle info HUD, get name. All right, so let's step through and see where the issue occurs. So let's go to, not our viewport, sorry about that. Let's go to our player controller. We should also delete that get in vehicle macro. And also have put those away in the last video, sorry about that. Let's put a breakpoint on this. All right, spawn in a vehicle, spawn in a unit, send the unit over. All right. So target for that is correct. We do have a unit that's being passed through. It is being passed through. There we go. We're clearing the target vehicle. Current passengers is being set through. There we go. Lovely. So it passed through into there. Now we should update the list. Going in. There is a unit definitely in there. All right, it's creating the widget. Oh. Yeah, you see the issue there? And let's just run through this. If you didn't see the issue, it's we haven't set the name. So what we need to do is we need to close that out. Yep, I know those warnings. We need to go back to our vehicle info. We need to go to our set unit names. And we're going to pass that into there. Now it should work. That actually should be in here. Sorry. Not sure what I just did. Not used to seeing that up there for some reason. Right. So let's test that now. Send it over. Let's just resume. And there's our unit. We can open the profile, but we can't remove the unit that way. We can still unload it, and it doesn't empty the list. It does remove that button though. So we need to do a couple more things then. Let's remove this breakpoint. We need to get the right click to work, and we need to get the unit to update when we remove passengers. So we're going to do the update list first, because at the same time we need to write a new function that will work for removing a single passenger. So go to your vehicle master, close out the get passengers. In the remove passengers bit here, what we need to do, and remember this is all passengers, we need to call another update to that update. We need to call another reference to that update occupants list. So go ahead and get your HUD reference in there. Get your set occupants list. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this on the right spot. So we are going to set our occupant list, or set passengers list. Occupant, it's the message, not that one, sorry. Set occupants. You want the message. If you're not seeing the message, remember to click off context sensitive at the top there. We're going to pass in our current units, which at this point is blank. There we go. And then we are going to update our list. So get the reference again, and we're going to do update passenger list. Plug that into there. All right, this removes all passengers out. What happens when we want to remove a single passenger? We're going to do something very similar to the building HUD mixed together with what we have here. So let's create a, I'm trying to think if we can actually duplicate this. We can't. We'll copy what we need, which will be the teleport. So we're going to copy all of that and this teleport. So Control C, create new function. This will be remove single passenger. I'm just going to paste this in here before I forget to do that. All right. We need to get a reference to the passenger that's being removed. And that reference will be, of course, a unit. And it fortunately is already set to the right type. So there's our unit. We're going to have a branch. And just like we did earlier, we are going to check, is the vehicle moving? So is moving. If it isn't, then we want to change some things. We want to change it so that we can, sorry, not change things. We want to set up what we want to have happen. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get set is targetable. That is the correct thing. Set to be targetable is what? Okay, hang on one second. Compile. Why is it not showing me the correct function? Set to targetable. There we go. Just had to compile it once. Put a reroute in there. Bring this up to the false. Plug that into the false there. Put another reroute in, just so it looks a little bit neater. And then what we're going to do is for each loop off of this. So for each. And all we're doing is we're removing this person from the array of current passengers. So let's get our current passengers. Just like we did for our current occupants in a building. We're iterating a loop as we're going through, which is not typically good practice, but because we're iterating this one and then done, it won't mess with the loop itself. We are going to check if this is equal to this. So we need to move this a little bit further down and move this a little bit further up, just a tiny bit. There we go. We want to check, is the current array we are looking at, is the current array element, so the current passenger in this array equal to this unit that we are checking for. There we go. And then we need a branch to check that statement for us, or to finish checking that statement. So I'll pass in our Boolean result there. If it's true, then we want to iterate this loop by removing the index. We do not want to remove the item, because that'll remove all passengers or all things of that type. So we want to remove that particular index, put a reroute in. There we go. I really don't like the fact that these don't line up well. That really just drives me crazy. And then again, we want to update the occupants list. So I'm going to go back into here and I'm just going to grab all of this, Control C, and paste that into here. Plug that there. There we go. The last thing we want to do is off the completed is we want to teleport that actor. So we're just going to drag this over here. We want to plug that into there. So is completed. Put a reroute in. You don't have to actually, but I like having my reroutes in, as you know. I'm just going to lower that there. Highlight all of this and just lower it a tiny bit because I need some room. And I'm going to take off of this reroute here, which remember goes back to our unit, and I'm just going to plug it into there. There we go. Now, this button still won't release a unit because we haven't told it to, but let's make sure that it is clearing the list when we have all units removed. So we're going to spawn in a vehicle, spawn in a unit, send the unit to the vehicle, open our vehicle HUD, unload passenger, it clears out, it clears the list. There we go. Now, let's set up our right-click event. So if we go into our occupant field there, we're just going to have the same thing down here. We're going to have a reference to our vehicle HUD. We are going to then have a a vehicle reference. So get our reference to the vehicle itself from the HUD. And in here, we're going to call a reference to release or remove single passenger. Good practice would have been to name it release again and then fix the other name, just to be fair. Always try to keep your naming conventions standard within what you're doing. Because I'm doing this tutorial over time, I will make mistakes with that. I apologize. Put our unit reference into there, and let's test this out, make sure it works. Move the unit into the vehicle. Oop. Get it to stop moving now, because I hit the wrong thing. Let's right click, and there it goes. It releases, it gets rid of the name, it gets rid of the occupant number, and it gets rid of that little button there. All right, so that takes care of setting up our user interface for the vehicle. Let's take care of some stuff that needs to be cleaned up. So everything in here is been organized in the variables. Our player controller has 2 that haven't been, so we'll skip that one. Everything in here has been organized. Everything in there is... Oh, no, we did organize everything in here. Never mind. Oh, no, we didn't. We had those 2 up there. Everything in here is organized. I'm not going to worry about that. We're not doing any multiple types of variables or functions. That's a player controller again. Not worrying about that one. I'm not going to worry about this. We are going to clean up one other thing. Actually, I should have left the unit open. Let's go back to the unit folder. Let's just make sure all the building stuff has been cleaned up as well. Alright, it looks like it has been actually. Let's go into our building master. Make sure it's also been cleaned up properly. I didn't do anything between recordings on that, by the way, so I'm just double checking that there isn't anything. Yeah, this needs to be cleaned up a tiny bit. Alright, so honestly, it's just moving things into the correct spot. Also, I want to collapse this down to a pure function. So I'm going to grab all of this. We're going to collapse this down to a function. And we're going to convert it to a pure function. And what we're doing with this function is we're checking build status. And the reason why we want to do this is I might want to, down the road, convert this into an event instead of using event tick. So, because you want to avoid using ticks where possible. This will be check if check construction status. That's not exactly the best description of what we're doing there, but it does clean this up a little bit. We'll move this into our construction folder. There we go. This will be, we'll have building variables. That's what we'll do for this one. So that will be in our building variables for all of these. Building variables. Move that into building variables. Move our wood cost into building variables. And move our ore into building variables as well. Okay, compile, save, close that out. Our unit master looks fairly good. We don't want to collapse some of this down, but I am not going to. Close that out, and these will be part of our unit commands. Not unit movement, sorry, unit command. That's unit control. There we go. Eventually I'd click the right thing. Alright. Actually, you know what? No, this will be in unit control. That makes more sense there with the is unit selected. Okay, so that takes us through everything we need to do for this section so far. There might be more cleanup, more things that people will point out, and I will do my best to address that. So with our final bit, let's just do this on the main window. Let's test this out. Let's put a building in, make sure everything is still working. It's reducing that. It's not building, which is good. Spawn a couple units in. Send all 4 of these lovely units into the building. There we go. We might run into an issue where they spawn into each other. Hopefully they won't. Grab our vehicle there. Move the vehicle out of the way. For some reason it's messing with my marquee select right now. Send our units into it. Drive this unit somewhere. And make sure I can stop and not start driving around in little fiddly circles trying to get to the correct spot, which it's going to do. There we go. Release passengers or unload passengers. And unfortunately, they have spawned into each other. So let's actually clean that up a tiny bit. So what we're going to do is when we go into our building master and it releases our units, so if we go into our units and go into release all occupants, what we're going to do is we are going to teleport them slightly. So we are going to grab off of this and we're going to do teleport. And what we want to do, we're going to give ourselves a bit of space here. We want to get a reference to the self here. So we want to get a reference to, actually no, we're not going to do a reference to self. We're going to get actor location, which has a built-in reference to self. We are going to break this vector. And we are going to then get a random float in range. Sorry, that was the wrong one. Random float in range. We're going to set it between 150, which should take us right outside the entry point box to 300. We are going to add this to the X value, so float plus float. There we go. And we're going to duplicate this down here. And we're going to duplicate this as well. We're going to do the same for the Y value. For the X value, we're going to leave as is, because it shouldn't really change. So make vector. Push that down to the Z. Push that into the X. And this is not going to be neat. We're just going to cross over it. I'm sorry. Push that into there. We're going to plug that into there. And what we're going to teleport is this unit. So we're just grab off that reroute there. Plug that pin into there. Add a reroute in just to make it a little bit nicer and neater looking. There we go. Let's test that out. Spawn in a few units. Put a building in. Send the units into it. Alright, that should build fairly quickly, but let's just speed this up to give them some help. Alright, we'll slow down as we get towards the end there. And let's go back to our normal speed. Alright, didn't really teleport them. We need to increase the teleportation distance to, say, 700 and 700. Now, when we do this, it should work. Let's spawn in one factory, one silo, put a whole bunch of units on one side. We're just going to spawn a bunch for there. Put a whole bunch on this side. Speed this up. There we go. And unfortunately, some are still clustered together. It's just too many units we're sending in. Also, I think we are still way too close to that mesh, so we're going to increase this just a bit. We're going to increase that to 300 by 1,000. 300 by 1,000. Spawn in our factory. Let's put 5 units into it. That's interesting. There we go. I'm not sure what happened there. I actually have a very good idea. Remember that bug we fixed for the car that I mentioned? I think we are dealing with it with that factory as well, which means the building masters have a small issue that we need to address that I didn't catch earlier. There we go. They teleport out at better locations now, except for we had a little bit of an issue with this one, it seems, but at least they moved into the correct spot after a minute. All right, let's go back into our building master and make sure that when the units enter, they enter correctly. So in here, we want to arrive at building. Oh, no, it should have worked. You should have. Ignore. Okay, let's see if we can replicate that error, if that was just a one-off random issue we had. Right, so I'm going to pause so it doesn't finish the building while we're doing this. Let's go into our player controller and see if we can work out why it's doing that. So move to building, add breakpoint. Let's open back up our test. Let's actually hit resume on that first. And send. Damn it. We're going to do it again. So I'm going to spawn in one unit there, one behind it, one there, one behind it, one there, one behind it. Put a factory in, and hopefully the issue shows up. We're just going to resume. Of course, they all teleport in, so we're going to stop that. We are going to break this breakpoint. Spawn in the factory first. And spawn the units inside the factory's area to begin with. And I know what the issue is. So what was happening earlier is because they were inside of the overlap area already, it wasn't triggering on initial overlap anymore. So that is just something to be mindful of. That might have to do with tinkering with the size of things, but because we aren't going to be spawning in units anymore, this shouldn't be an issue. In the next section, we're going to set up unit construction. So that is just because of the fact we're using that spawn in feature. That isn't a problem with the game, at least not that I can foresee. So all of that said, sorry about the little bit of confusion towards the end of this video. That takes us through the first half of this tutorial's cleanup. From here, we'll be combining all the elements even further, and then we'll move into setting up our AI. Instead of having just our command from the user, we will also set up our enemy combatants down the road, and then we will see what else we will do for this series. However, we now have the basis for the setup. In fact, you can do a lot of things, like you even start doing a city builder instead with what we have here. All of that said, I hope you've enjoyed this series so far and in this video. If you have, go ahead and hit that like button down below. It really helps this channel out. It gets this content out to people who might not know it exists by raising its ratings on YouTube. Outside of that, if there's anything you want to see in this series, let me know down in the comments below. And, as always, I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial as well. I do hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.